I'm a firm believer that, you know, if you don't have something nice to say, just don't say nothing else. You know what I mean? And again, another thing is this, you know, just because you don't like the messenger or approve of the messages don't mean that the message is invalid. You know what I mean? And so, and not saying everything he said was true, because again, I wasn't really a follower of him, and a lot of stuff that I seen was, I felt like clownish stuff because people were just trying to get him out of his character.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, again, did some of the things he say have some validity? Possibly so. And so, are we to ignore that just because we may not approve of his delivery? You know what I mean? And again, when people pass away, bro, like you have to, respect their family. You know what I mean? Just because you don't really like this person, realize that he has a mother, has a father, maybe a brother, a sister, child, children. You know what I mean? And these people are grieving, and they don't want to get on social media and just see all this backlash, this and that.
Welcome to the Clear in the Air podcast with D and Q.
I'm D.
And I'm Q. Man, today might be one of the maybe slightly somber podcasts that we have done. And first things first, before we go into anything, Kevin Samuels, we just want to say rest in peace to you, praying for your family, all of that stuff, because, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I think are a little bit outlandish. He has passed away, and the result of him passing away has led to a lot of fuss.
Mhm.
Okay, a lot of fuss because there are individuals who are taking shots at a man who is no longer here with us. I'm gonna let you kind of talk, and just before we don't, because we don't want to hone in on that, but we have to spend some time talking about that because it is what is happening at this time. But if we can, let's talk a little bit about who Kevin Samuels was. I'm not sure that everybody knows. And so I'm going to let the historian here kind of break that down to us. So, D, if you could just kind of talk about the life of Kevin Samuels.
Right. Well, yeah, just to kind of first piggyback off what you were saying, um, we're not going to get too deep into some of his histrionics, but we're just more so talking about how his death has caused a lot of reaction and a lot of discussion. So that's mostly what we're going to focus on. But we got to start somewhere with how he popped on the scene, how he became popular. So I want to say he started his YouTube in 2015. I want to say, and he was an image consultant. So he just kind of, his target audience at that time was men. So that was his thing, just kind of being a consultant for men. I think he had this videos like 15 things a man needs or something, and it was like, some of it went from like a nice suit to a sense of humor, this and that, blah blah blah. So I want to say a couple years after, maybe around like 2017, he switched, and his target audience focused more on women. And so that's when he kind of took off, like his influence increased, his social media following increased, whatever. And so, yeah, he just, you know what I'm saying? He just sort of switched it to the women. And he kind of based it, he was more so giving like relationship advice to women. And a lot of times it was Black women. And he could be brash. His delivery was definitely could be, harsh at times. And he kind of based it on like four things. So it was age, appearance, income, and number of children, right? And so, at times, I think you know, he had his supporters and he had his detractors. So his supporters might have been, you know, people who maybe were thinking something, but were maybe afraid to say it. He would say it. You know what I mean? I think like a lot of men kind of rocked with him, especially black men, because you know maybe some black men felt like they were always being to blame for why relationships don't work, or you know, especially among black men and black women. And some of his detractors, a lot of times, black women felt like you know he was being harsh with them, or you know what I mean, just kind of being insensitive, insulting. Um, you know, so yeah, he had like this. Either way, he had a following. You know, whether it was positive or negative. You know what I'm saying? He had a following. Um, yeah, and so he recently passed away. I want to say he was 53,
56.
56. Okay, 56. Was it cardiac arrest? Cardiac arrest or heart attack? Something.
It's not sure.
It's not sure.
They
Right,
just
right.
found him in his apartment.
In his apartment, right. So yeah, so he passed away. Um, and at first, a lot of people were wondering if it was true. So once it was confirmed, this is where the issue has come up, because a lot of people in his passing have been, you know, kind of harsh with their criticism. And it sparked a lot of debate, because at the end of the day, he was somebody's brother. He was somebody's son. He does have a mother. He does have a family, and they're trying to grieve their loved one who has passed away. And so a lot of people, well, I don't want to say a lot, but there were a lot of people who, you know, despite that, were saying, you know, that was karma, that's what he gets, you know, blah blah blah. And so some people was like, that's not cool for y'all to be doing that. You know, he has a family, you know, so that's what we want to talk about, and that's what we want to discuss. So
Thank you for breaking that down for us.
uh-huh.
It's tough to find words sometimes when stuff like this happens, just because I do agree that while they're yeah, he oftentimes was very, is brash the right word?
Brash is the right word. Brash is the right word. You could use controversial, you could use harsh, you could use
Yeah,
insensitive.
yeah.
all them
You
adjectives.
can use a lot of words, and
Yeah.
just me going back and thinking. Number one, when you talk about he did have a following, he had almost 1.5 million followers.
Hmm.
So if to me, yes, you can have haters in your followers, but are you really a hater if you follow me and if you remain a follower, if you don't truly like what I say? So there were people who did find value in what he presented. Like you said, just looking at his YouTube, like you say, image consultant, influencer. I do actually recall, and he did start his YouTube in 2015.
Hmm.
I do actually recall him being someone who, like you said, broke down like image. When you say image
Hmm.
consultant, this dude was always sharp,
Hmm.
you know. And so seeing him in what made me that stand out to me, I think I probably remember that, even though it was in the beginning, more than some of the other stuff. In all honesty, I didn't follow him, or I didn't,
Hmm.
I wasn't up on the latest thing that he would say, unless it was something that kind of made headlines.
Hmm. Right.
But again, you're talking about almost 5 million subscribers. I remember when I had my blog for customer service, I do remember one of the things I would talk about was your image. And so seeing him being able to really break down stuff in those terms of talking about the importance of keeping an image was huge. So that kind of really rang true with me, because it was something that I believed in. But I mean, he was just kind of, to me, on another level with things. It's definitely to be noted when it came to him. And I do want to make another point, because we can clearly talk about how brash he was, and how his delivery was. I think it's very clear to talk about his delivery was. And this is not to, we're not here to say we agree with how he was, we disagree with how he was. We, as you mentioned, are here to talk about kind of the backlash that he's receiving since he is no longer here with us. What are some of the things that you have heard or that's circulating around about him now that he's no longer with us?
I mean, bro, you know how people can be, you know how social media can be, you know, you kind of the person that kind of will find some comments and be like, yeah, one person said this and that. I think a lot of it just had to deal with karma. You know what I mean? A lot of people felt like the people that his detractors who had things to say in his passing, pretty much the common thing was it was karma for how you treated people. So now it's come back on you.
Right.
So that pretty much was the common thing, you know what I'm saying? You know, and again, the people who were against that was saying, hey, this guy has a family. Like, let's be respectful of the family. You know what I mean? And, you know, kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, I did not follow him. And I think when I learned about him, it was, you know, because of the brashness that he was, you know, his delivery, you know what I mean? So whenever I would see stuff, it would always be something about his brash delivery. So I want to say, you know, by the time I got on to him, because the stuff I was seeing was like harsh and brash, I just never really took it serious because I felt like at that time, a lot of people, especially women, were just calling with the goal of just trying to get him out of character, to get him, you know, to kind of give him a piece of his own medicine. And to his credit, he never lost his cool. He would just like hang up, or he would say something disrespectful. I heard him say your mama a couple times, or he would just hang up. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, when I got hip to him, it was just kind of more so that. So it just seemed more not him clownish, but the interaction seemed a little more clownish because it was just people just trying to get him out of his element or ruffle his feathers, and he never did. So, but I never really said, you know, I've seen, you know, little clips of when he talked to women and, you know, they would give. I remember this one lady, I think she was like mid-30s. She had like a 13-year-old son. She made 6 figures. So she was saying she wanted a man that was on her level. And Kevin Samuels pretty bluntly was like, well, you already got a 13-year-old, you 35, you got like, I don't want to say baby daddy drama, but you know, that you have that element there.
Right.
And he was like, you're already over age and your parents is average at best. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it was just stuff like that. You know, he was just, you know, being harsh, and it definitely is not for the weak-hearted. You know what I mean? So,
but you know what? You know what I will say, bro, with that? Again, he had 1.5 million subscribers, not followers, subscribers on YouTube, right? You were looking for answers. You went to him. And so this is the thing. Whether you like what he said or you don't like what he said, again, if you go looking for information or looking for advice, you may or may not hear what you want to hear.
Right. But some people were going, I think, to just for the show, like to see whether you was going for advice, or maybe you just wanted to laugh, or you wanted to see, or maybe you were so disgusted with how he responded to people that you would go check to see, all right, so what he done did now, or what he done said now. But people checked in. I think that's the point you're trying to make, right? For sure.
Yeah, and again, to me, it wasn't checking in if you were one of his subscribers. If you were outside of that, you
Right.
were checking in.
Right.
But the point is, you did it. So
Right. You're
I'm
still
not trying
giving
to.
them a view. You're
Well,
giving them views. Right.
but I also just go to the point of just saying that, if there's something, it's just like, and this is a different thing, but it's like, if I don't like racism, I'm not going to put myself in an environment to where someone could potentially be racist to me.
Mhm.
If I know I'm not wanted in an environment, I don't put myself in that environment. And so again, even saying that is not saying that it's justified, the harshness was justified in any means, or that I would do that, or I agree that that's how you should do a thing. I'm just saying, if you put yourself in that environment, you might expect certain things. I will say this as well. I think he addressed both males and females, because a lot of it was that, I think Dr. Umar Johnson talked about how he disrespected Black women.
Mhm.
There are other people. If you go and you look on Twitter or whatever else, you will see where people tweet how they feel and they talk about specific things as of how they felt disrespected. Okay. Okay. And you replay clips back. But I also think not everything applies to everybody. I don't think everything that was said obviously doesn't apply to everybody. I think when you talked about certain things, you talk about how he would classify Black male as being, or men, period, being high value men. And so again, if you're saying, hey, that's what I want, he may bluntly have just come out and said, you might have to work a little harder, or that's outside of what you should aim for.
Right.
Again, who are you to tell someone that? But again, if you don't like the advice that you got from here, you can go elsewhere. The answer might not change, or it may. Okay, same for a male. Okay, if you're not a high value man and you're looking to be one, or you're having issues, maybe with your image or whatever else, men went to him and got advice or got slayed by him as well.
Mhm.
So I think, it's kind of like a comedian when you talk about like a Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle he doesn't just make jokes about LGBT. He makes jokes about Black people, he makes jokes about white people, he makes jokes of anybody can get it.
Mhm.
So I think that's something to keep in mind when you hear some of the things that he said. But I will again say, I don't necessarily subscribe that I would have said things at all as, or the way he said it. But I also realize that I'm not the one that people are coming to
Mhm.
looking to get answers.
Right. Right. And again, like I was saying, that's I felt like by the time I got hip to it, more so people were just trying to do it. It wasn't really people that wanted advice from him. It was just people that just kind of wanted to be like, tried to get at his neck, and he just was not having it. You know what I mean? So let me ask you this though, bro, because I saw something and I thought this was pretty interesting. Let me get your perspective on it. I saw something, it was a quote, um, and it was basically saying how, well, two things. I saw two quotes. The first one was like this lady, she said she wasn't necessarily happy that he died, or she wasn't taking satisfaction in the fact that he died. She was more so thinking that the people that he terrorized would no longer be terrorized. And I thought that was a strong statement. Maybe I thought terrorize is kind of a strong word. I love a good word, and I was like terror, like wow. And I guess to me it was because these people were calling for the advice. So how? Not saying you knew what you signed up for, because I don't think no one willingly wants to be terrorized. Like you say, I'm not going to willingly go to a place if I know there's going to be some uncomfort or some racism, this and that, like you were saying. But I thought that was an interesting statement.
So I say two things. I say this to my wife a lot. I will never try to take away how somebody feels.
Correct.
I don't have the right to take away how you feel. that being said and done, I do agree with the choice of words being used. Sounds like she was someone who was terrorized by his words. But I wonder if she ever called and talked to him.
Right.
And therefore was terrorized by what he said. Because he would do Instagram lives and stuff like that and bring you on. That being said, I guess my second thing to that is, it sounds like if she didn't call in, that she fit a certain, I don't want to say label, but certain statistics she lined up with.
Right.
And when you say something like terrorize, and I hate to say it in this manner, you know, you think about historical figures that terrorized. You're talking about Hitler. He terrorized the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys, this is just the next thing that comes up. You want to talk about Pharaoh in the Bible? He terrorized the Jews, and I don't mean to stick on Jews. Other if we want to go there, slave owners terrorized slaves.
Right.
I don't think that if someone's opinion of a certain statistic terrorizes you, maybe you feel that you, and I think Ari Spears had mentioned this, that if you fit within a particular statistic, as a word, lack of better terms, that you internally feel some kind of way when you feel as if you can identify with that group or that situation.
Right.
Is that what terrorizes you?
Right.
So that's the only problem. Those are the two things I would say in response to that.
Yeah. Maybe he struck a nerve, even though she probably didn't call. Maybe, you know, maybe someone that called in might have had the same stats that she had, and maybe she, you know, maybe it struck a nerve. I don't know. It'd be interesting to get her reasoning for using that word, but
we may never get that.
Yeah, we may never know. You know what I'm saying? And here was another thing, and we're gonna talk, you know, because we are two Black men, so we're gonna talk about. And this is a whole nother podcast, but I came across this notion, and I'm gonna get your opinion on it as well. So it basically said that there was this moment to where Black women and Black love was being embraced and appreciated by pop culture, which I agree with. And I think the resurgence of that happened around the unfortunate situation with George Floyd, because I felt like it was such a tragic situation that was in the public eye. And of course, Black women did what they always do, was they was at the forefront. They supported us. They defended us. They had our back. You know what I mean? They loved us. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, they saw, like, the world saw what the Black man was going through, was dealing with, or what could deal with, whether it's police brutality, discrimination, you know, anything. You know what I mean? And so I noticed around that time, you know, like right towards the beginning of the pandemic, like it was a lot of Black love and, you know, appreciation and support for Black men and Black women. I noticed that. Loved it. And so the quote was saying, you know, it was a time where Black love and Black women were being embraced by pop culture. Then Kevin Sanders came and just blew that all up. So it was kind of like, once he came and blew it up, it was like, okay, Black men and Black women, we're divided again, and we just ain't gonna see eye to eye.
Yeah, Dr. Umar, they had a back and forth over social media, and apparently Dr. Umar it was 3 Ds, I think he used, and divide was one of the words. Again, it's someone's opinion that a man with 1.5 million subscribers could divide a whole race of people.
Right.
I don't actually attribute that to Kevin Samuels.
Right.
I personally don't. Do I think he could have ruffled some feathers within the community? Of course,
Mhm.
of course. But I think sometimes, again, when statements are made, sometimes we try to one size fits all statements. This man didn't. I don't feel he didn't attempt to black men. You're above black women, and black women aren't worthy of. I don't think he tried to do that. Maybe the timing of what he was doing took place maybe in that time, but I would not attribute any division on such a high level to be to Kevin Samuels. I think there's so many other factors that it would take too much time to get into. I think there's so
Right.
many other factors that lead to division within our community that saying one man, no, I would not give that. I would not give him that much power, and that's not out of disrespect to him. It's just saying that no.
Right. The perceived issues between black men and black women are much bigger than Kevin Samuels.
I believe so
Right.
because again, you have to take the things that people were astounded by that he said and be able to apply that to every African American woman. You can't do that because
Mhm.
every African American woman did not fit between the things in certain situations that he addressed where people got in their feelings about. Assuming that you're a part of the problem if you do that. I think that's unfair. Bro, I think in this conversation, do you agree with some of the backlash that he's
So are we clearing the air? We're officially clearing the air right now?
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. Um, I mean, I don't agree with the backlash. I don't. You know, I again, he wasn't. You know, there were people who we know were like just like menaces, like you said. You had Hitler. You had other people we could name. You know what I mean? But
Mm,
to I'm a firm believer that you know you don't have something nice to say, just don't say nothing at all. You know what I mean? And again, another thing is this: just because you don't like the messenger or approve of the messages, don't mean that the message is invalid. You know what I mean? And not saying everything he said was true, because again, I wasn't really a follower of him, and a lot of stuff that I seen was, I felt like clownish stuff because people were just trying to get him out of his character.
mm.
Again, did some of the things he say have some validity? Possibly so. And so are we to ignore that just because we may not approve of his delivery? You know what I mean? And again, when people pass away, bro, like you have to, respect their family. You know what I mean? Just because you don't really like this person, realize that he has a mother, has a father, maybe a brother, a sister, child, children. You know what I mean? And these people are grieving. And they don't want to get on social media and just see all this backlash, this and that. It, I can make it personal, and I told you this. There have been people who have passed away that I didn't care for,
Mhm.
public figures or maybe somebody regular. And so, not saying I lost sleep over them no longer being here, but I'm not going like bashing, especially not on a public forum, because I know that person was loved by somebody. You know what I mean? So out of respect for their family, this and that, if I had an issue with that person or I wasn't a big fan of that person, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut and keep it moving. And I think that's what people probably should have done in this situation. So
You went there, and number one, his mom found out about his death apparently through social media.
right.
So what else did she find on social media? You had, and I got this wrong. Melanie King. I thought that was a family member, but I believe that was friend slash, again, as someone would say, fellow YouTuber.
Mhm.
So, again, that's just a situation where, again, he was loved and he was supported. Again, you take these situations and you say, if you don't support somebody, you don't have to be glad necessarily that they're gone.
Hmm.
At this point, their voice or whatever their views are, you don't have to necessarily hear them anymore.
Right. So you
You
could
know,
take solace in that and just keep it moving. You ain't got to further bash that person. They're no longer here.
yeah, yeah. And you use the word solace. I use the word silence. You you
Nice.
you could keep silent, and they most definitely would be silent because they're no longer here.
Mhm.
I want to give an idea that there are other people who feel in the same manner in which we do. So let's give feedback and the result of that feedback. So Pastor Jamal Bryant, he was recently discussed and talked about because of something he said. So Mother's Day, he went and he gave a message, Mother's Day message that was uplifting to women. And I guess he called himself doing the opposite of what Kevin Samuels would do. And he
Mhm.
talked about the idea of women who were over 35, and he encouraged those group of women. He also took a jab and said, and the same high value man who, or same man who views himself as being high value, had to take out a GoFundMe for his own funeral. Turns out, and as we should know, GoFundMe was not actually from his family.
Mhm.
Okay, so I believe there was probably some money that was put together, and I believe TMZ reported that the family was not going to take any of that money. Again, I think it says Kevin Samuels' family won't accept any money raised. I again say, and this is why I applaud you so much, because you know you don't want to come out there, say something, and look stupid. So let's go here real quick. We have our little platforms, right? Jamal Bryant, you have a huge platform. Two things, three things. You apparently look as if you're coming to the aid of women who he outed, right? Second thing, that's how you appear, but you're wrong in the information that you're using, and you're doing that over a pulpit. Okay, so now people will begin to question the validity of what comes out of your mouth because people expect you to know better, that you don't use. It wasn't a biblical fact that you can go look at in the book and say, yep, this is what happened. You were incorrect. And, we see this all the time where people go and they repeat something that they've seen online and GoFundMe's. This happens all the time. People who are not related to the family try to use a get rich situation to try to take advantage. And it's not has nothing to do with the family. What I do like, and I'm not necessarily saying either one of these men were supporters of him, but you had Omarion and T.I. who came out to his defense. So, just looking at those situations, you have something that was said, but then you also have two people who have platforms, which is why this is a good thing of how you use your platform correctly, who did not, they were very neutral. Didn't say, we agree with what Kevin Samuels said about this, and we agree with what he said. Listen, the man is gone. You don't appreciate or like what he said, guess what? You don't ever have to go on Instagram live with him. Don't give his YouTube videos any play. Let him rest in peace. How about you keep peace within yourself? Bro, I think we can clear the air on this. And what I will say as we clear the air is simply this. there will be things that are said by individuals moving forward. There are people who are alive now that will say things that may rub us the wrong way, especially if it's online. We have the option to not engage or put ourselves in an environment that we feel like is adverse to us. That's one thing. The other thing I will say is, because we live in a digital age, what you say online will remain and oftentimes make you look very foolish. It
Yeah,
will
man.
make you look very foolish.
It
So
doesn't
use
go
your
away.
word.
It doesn't
Lose.
go away.
It doesn't go away. Please use your words wisely online. And to your credit, please make sure that before you go and you put something online that you have done your homework and you know what you're talking about. Because there's nothing wrong with being loud. And I feel like a lot of social media comments are loud, being loud and wrong.
It's so true, bro. It's so true, but I try to avoid being loud and wrong. I try to avoid it, but that's why I'm always like, nah. And that's why I don't move impulsively, bro.
Yeah.
I just don't move impulsively, bro.
Mhm.
So I like to know what I'm talking about when I say something. And if I don't, I would like to at least research it or reach out to somebody who may know more about that situation than I do. So
Bro, listen, we've cleared the air. Rest in peace again to Kevin Samuels. God bless his family. Let that man rest in peace, y'all. Peace.
totally agree. Peace.